webinar in our continuing series of content aimed at helping folks in media and publishing perform better every day in all the different things that they're challenged with. This month we're focusing on part 2 of the media kit. So those of you that didn't attend last month, it's okay. We'll catch you up pretty quickly on where things go. And those of you who are back for round 2, we're going to take some of those ideas from last month and get even more granular. So we're incredibly excited about this. In the last 2 months, registration, we've been over 600 different, 600 registrants for these 2 months. So we know we've touched a big nerve on how important this subject is as you guys are in the middle of the process of planning next year and figuring out what to do. So thanks so much for coming. We will go a little bit longer today because of the nature of the content. It'll be closer to 45 minutes, so hopefully you'll hang in there and get plenty of value from it. Again, my name is Brett Kierstead. I'm Vice President of Sales for Knowledge Marketing. For those of you who are new to KM, thanks for coming. We are focused on providing services to media and publishing companies, really across 5 major value propositions. Unification of a publisher's audience. We really help re-energize on the email side. We're really trying to help push forward a modernization of the C.O.R.E management function. We help capture a lot of the behavioral engagement that publishers and media companies are looking for these days, as well as really our passion is to help empower media sales success. We do this with a great group of growing clients in this industry. A couple new mentions at the bottom are folks from Tabor Communications as well as Pentavision. Again, new clients on board in the process of really trying, like our other clients, to take a different approach to how they go about their business and how they drive success and move their company forward. So we're grateful for them, and it's their ideas, their feedback, their stories that we learn from and we try to share with each of you. We will record today's session, so those of you who have others that couldn't make it, we will send it along a recorded link, as well as some fun other handouts. Speaking of which, we did send you handouts ahead of time. Those of you should have received an email from our folks in marketing that will have a reference to the document that we're going to talk a little bit about today. Again, it's not necessary. You don't have to have it, but it might help you understand these 12 ideas that we're going to go through today. I'm going to get you started with a quick poll, and the poll is as follows. Okay, I'm going to start this here. I'm going to launch this, and it says, our position on our 2016 Media Kit, so you're thinking about it, is one of the 3 things, if you wouldn't mind answering. Number 1, we are going to do one, but we're doing it begrudgingly. In other words, we're just doing it. We are invested in making significant changes. Hopefully, you are. Hopefully you're thinking about it and you're going to look for something different. Or C, we are actually seriously considering not doing one at all. So cutting the cord, no media kit for 2016. So if you take a minute and go through it, we'll get these answers here. And another few seconds here. Most of you have voted. I appreciate it. So let's see what we come up with here. About another 10 seconds. And we'll close it. Okay. I admit I'm not great at showing the results, so I will tell you how it worked out. On the first question, 27% of you answered A, that we are doing so begrudgingly. 72% of you, I'm happy to hear, had the middle one, that we are invested in making significant changes. So that's good. Hopefully that's why you're here. Interestingly, the last one, that only 1% of you, 1% of you answered that you're actually thinking of not doing one at all. So I want to give you guys a little provocative thought on that. Only 1% of you, in other words, are even contemplating this. And it may seem, gosh, how could we do business without it? But I'll give you a little bit of a question to think about. 5 years ago, how many of you would have said we would never think of not having our titles audited, those of you in controlled titles? But yet a lot of folks today are starting to think about that. So before you think that you would never not have a media kit, it probably wasn't too long ago that you never thought that you'd have to have your titles audited for verification. So time changes lots of things, folks. And, you know, hopefully we don't know where it's going to head. We don't know where you're going to head in the future of the Media Kit, but don't be surprised that it goes through a metamorphosis over the coming years and how it's used in the process. So thanks for your feedback there. All right, so here's our agenda. We're going to quickly recap the 12 key questions so you understand where we're coming from. We're going to look for, we're going to go through a traditional Media Kit and review it, and then we're going to show you kind of an updated representation. So again, this tip sheet, those of you who were on it last month had an option to do this. The marketing team folks here at KM sent this to you ahead of time for you to download. Again, these are the questions we're going to use. If you didn't get it, you can certainly get it afterwards. But here they are. Number one, when you're thinking about your Media Kit, here's the 12 questions that we asked. Number one, are you taking a fresh look, or are you just doing same old, same old? According to the poll, 72% of you said you're taking a fresh look, which is great. The other 27% hopefully will give you a couple of ideas today. Even if you can't make wholesale changes, you'll definitely take a look at it. The balanced approach, you know, we want to make sure we have a balanced approach in our Media Kit between flash and substance. You want to make sure that we know the purpose of your Media Kit. Why? We'll talk a little bit about this today. Why you produce it, why certain pieces of data and content are in it, what your intent is there. We want to make sure that there's expected outcomes. You know, have we communicated to our customers or potential clients in the kit what some expectations that they can have, as well as are there concrete examples of where you've had success in the past. And last on this slide are your products in context, meaning when you talk about your products, we'll go through this later on, do clients understand their value, or are they just a list and visual representation? Number 7, again, you're asking yourself these questions about your Media Kit as you're planning it for next year. Number 7 is, does it articulate a distinct competitive position? We'll get into that as well. Are you showing cross-channel and targeting capabilities? You know, or is it looking like you're just a bunch of siloed businesses? Are you using cliches and buzzwords? So that's a big one. We're going to talk a little bit about that one. We're going to talk about pricing, what it conveys. And 11, we're going to see and ask questions about whether your Media Kit truly represents you as a diversified media company. And lastly, what kind of tracking and engagement do you have set up? So again, when I went through and reviewed Media Kits and looked for these different ideas, both for last webinar and this one, these are the ideas that we were assessing. You know, do they meet these criteria? And we would hope you would do the same. Okay, so let's get to it. The kit that I picked to go through is one that we use because we are a customer of Folio as an advertiser and a sponsor, and so something that we have that we can look through. Again, I've looked at plenty of them. There's lots of different examples. We'll show some other examples during this, but to keep continuity's sake, this is the one we use. And many of you are supporters of them and supporters of the industry that they serve, which we're all in. So I figured this would one that we would have some understanding or commonality across the different businesses. Okay, so there's your test case, if you will. As a disclaimer, even though, you know, when I go through this process, I'm going to be pointing out recommendations and suggestions. And obviously, like a lot of people, we like to focus sometimes on areas of improvement, but I do want to say that we are definitely, you know, we're a supporter of the organization. We're attending the show, and hopefully you folks will be there. Tanya, who's our account executive, works with us. We have, you know, very high marks for her. So even though it might sound like at times I'm being critical of aspects of the Media Kit, it's an academic exercise, not necessarily an indictment for them as a partner. So understand that we're not trying to pick on anybody. It's really just we need a representative example. Okay, so let's get into it. The first question that I asked myself, and I would ask you to consider about this kit as well, is who was responsible for creating it? Who had input into it? You know, is it something that was created by someone in marketing? You know, is it somebody in sales? Did sales have input into it? Did editorial write any of the copy? Who created the content? Did you use a third-party consultant? Do you have somebody that comes in from an expertise in creating these kinds of documents? Was audience development involved? If appropriate, were there tech writers Did you run it by a client, an existing client, or perhaps one of your key agency partners to ask them their feedback? Because again, sometimes I look at a lot of these and I ask myself, did somebody just kind of write this, and did they actually ask questions? Now, I think Folio has a mixed group. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's clear that they've got input from different parts of the business. But again, the more that I look at it, you want to certainly make sure, because all of these constituents may touch the document or have input into the content or use of it, it's good to get feedback. Okay? The second question that I would ask them, and I didn't ask them, but I would ask you too, is what is the purpose of it? Who is this being written for? And you'll see in my examples throughout today, and on a lot of the ones I read, it's really unclear who you actually want to read this and what your purpose is in creating the document. So for example, I would ask, is the purpose of this to educate somebody? Like, am I educating a market about us as a company and our products? Or am I trying to actually engage somebody? Do I want them to use this in a lead gen manner where they'll look at it and they'll take action to call? You know, because spread out throughout the document are various calls to action, like please contact your account manager, please contact this, please contact that. So is it meant to be an engagement? Is it meant to be an inspirational document that gets you fired up about how awesome that they are as a partner? Because there are glimpses of that within here as well. Is it meant to instruct? Like it, and you'll see what we mean by instruct as giving you specific examples as an advertiser of how many pixels you're allowed or how big the ad size might be. You know, it's like an instruction manual. Is it to transact? People put pricing in there. So the question is, do we want this to actually buy off this? Or do we want a conversation? So that's in there. Is it purely created as a sales aid? Meaning, I don't want anybody to actually read it, but I want a salesperson to bring it along and accompany it in maybe in its print format and spark a conversation. Is that the purpose? Or for some of you, it might just be table stakes, like, hey, we don't care. Agencies want to see our RFP. We have to create one regardless, so we don't care. And I'm not saying that's bad. That's always horrible. I mean, that sometimes we do things like that we have to do in a competitive situation. But again, you got to ask yourself, the amount of effort and contribution and strategy this document has to be commensurate with what the purpose of it is. Okay, so again, ask yourself as a business, what's your purpose? Now again, for me, in our relationship with Folio, it's a companion piece. It just provides us with some factual information, but most of the content that we get from them about how we want to work with them as an organization is done through our account manager. So we at Knowledge Marketing don't put a huge amount of emphasis on this document for how we particularly buy media from Folio, because our purchases are more strategic in nature. We're not just conducting simple transactions with them. We're trying to look as a strategic partnership. So for us, it's more of a companion document than it is a centerpiece. But again, make sure you understand what that is. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty even further of the kit. Most of you have on your website as an entry point some representation about how to get the kit. So Folio has on their website, Folio Mag /advertise, you know, kind of a representation of it. And some of you have like literally pure copies of the content just pulled out, or maybe excerpts of it, etc., or some different visuals and graphics. And obviously the decision you have to make there is it's the entry point for this content. So you want to have continuity there as well as relevance in terms of how I'm going to engage the rest of the information. Okay, so here's an example of theirs. The web is an entry point. You know, it's an entry point into this document, and on here you're having a chance to do some things differently. Okay, remember, many of you produce your Ultimate Media Kit in a PDF format. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but the web, for people that are going to see that kit, it can be an entry point. So for example, on Folio's website, one of the comments I noticed as I was out there navigating, and when I clicked on some of these images, instead of taking me into this interactive experience or this multimedia experience, it just simply popped up a picture of the magazine, right? It didn't engage me in any manner. It didn't add anything to it. And so the website, as a method of pre-engagement into potentially later the print kit, needs to take advantage of the fact that we have multimedia. You know, we have the ability to drill into things. We have the ability to make things a little bit more sexy and a more engaging environment if we start with that. So when you're reviewing your media kit, don't just think of the PDF. You got to look upstream at that as well. And it's really important to test QA. For example, I went out and I went on Google and I typed Folio Media Kit. And the second entry that came up is a test site that sits out there probably randomly that they probably don't even know exists that pulls up some innocuous back office programming code. Okay, obviously, you're at this early stage of representing what is it like to be a customer of yours and to use you as a media partner. You want to make sure that you're tight and clean with how all of the interactions work. So they're assessing you from the beginning, even online before they get to the downloadable kit, if that's the direction you go, about your aptitude and ability to work with them as a partner. Okay? Also, gating strategy. Some of you make available on the website full access. Some of you have to click something. Some of you have to contact a salesperson. Obviously, there's strategies in each. In these guys' case, a Folio, in order to get the pricing information and the more detailed full kit, you really have to, it's gated content, so you either have to fill out your name or in this case, contact one of our sales representatives for the kit in order to get full pricing. So there's different strategies on that. Some people have it out there, some people don't. I don't think there's any consensus on it. Obviously, in a considered purchase, you would prefer them to talk to a salesperson as opposed to just looking at prices. In a transaction purchase, it may just be more convenient to just understand what the rates are, but each one of you has to make a decision. My preference would be to gate it in some form or fashion or make some content available so that it forces a level of engagement. But also just remember, I'm a stickler for words, and as I was preparing this document, I just want to make you understand that some of this is just style guide, some of it is what my perception was, some of it is grammatical and things like that, but I think the people in this industry are trying to be more strategic. The account managers are trying to offer a more strategic conversation. So I like account manager or our strategic account managers as opposed to sales representatives. So again, words matter in any kind of communication, so just keep an eye out for how you're representing your people. There's a technology out there for those of you who don't like standard PDF. Again, as media companies, one of the things we always complain about is it's hard for us to track people. We complained about print because we couldn't, and then we got all this cool online technology, and half of us don't even use what we have available. There is a company out there that some of our customers have experimented with that we worked with called Docalytics. They have a technology that helps for PDF tracking, kind of like a digital edition, but a little bit more interactive and a little bit more measurement. If you do want to stick with a PDF delivery, it kind of renders your media kit, if you will, in a PDF viewer, and it provides this tracking on how people navigate within your PDF. So again, don't just assume that all you got to do is produce your standard PDF, they download it, and you never know what they do. There are new technologies out there to help you on how people might get into that particular document. Okay, so let's go through this now page by page. And the reason why I'm doing this is it's really section by section, I guess I should say. It's because there is a commonality I think you'll see among most media kit templates, if you will, for how you do it. So there's specific sections that everybody seems to have. So we'll break these down section by section, and then you can apply these learnings and thoughts into your own. So let's start with the cover page. I mean, again, it's fairly benign, but there is always something important on here. It's your entry point to make a definitive statement. I think it's interesting that Folio makes the position that it's authority access results. Okay, I went into their document as I read in it. On page 6 it says 4 words that drive everything Folio is insight, inspiration, innovation, and implementation. So now we have authority access results, insight, implementation, insight, innovation, etc. So I think what we want to make sure is, even from the beginning, that we're starting ourselves off with some key consistent value propositions and branding that's going to hold true throughout the entire process. So again, whenever you have a cover page, your entry point in it, is it really setting me up for a great experience and consistent throughout the rest of the document? The second thing most of you have is a section called About Us. About Us is an opening argument. It's kind of who we are, your positioning statement. It's really a credibility position. A lot of you have this in there. You give some background. In this case, they have our core values, who we reach, our integrated audience, which I think is really good. But I think there's some more attributes of what us would be. Us being a whole community of people that they serve. The customers are us. Folio's employees are part of us. Technology is part of us, about us. We are a leading technology. We use the latest and greatest technologies to make sure that we serve ads in the best format, whatever we want to say there. Us is our database, our how great we are at our data is part of us. Our competencies as a business is part of us. And our compelling differences are part of us, So, some of the cliches of values and that are great and they're important, but I think that there's more things that you guys are doing behind the scenes that really should define who you are. You're defined a lot by these other attributes on the right as opposed to just some kind of standard about us stuff. So take a look for that. Also, we all love charts and graphs, and we're going to spend a couple more slides on this, but I always want people to be careful about what you're trying to say. This is the chart that exists in the document and the About Us section, and it's your classic kind of Venn diagram. But for those of you and those of us in the audience that are Venn diagram geeks, if you will, this actually visually represents not a very good overlapping audience. In fact, several parts of this barely overlap, and even in the middle you have little to no overlap of anybody engaged in all. So again, I think when we're trying to construe a message as publishers about the integration of our audiences, conceptually we're on the right track, but just remember that we're trying to visually explain how we are the only way for an advertiser to get this broad distribution of content, as well as tracking users and managing them as they engage with us across all types of content. So again, just make sure that your visuals represent the story you're trying to tell. The next section that a lot of you have is something called a market overview, right? You're looking at who you serve, what is the opportunity out there. Again, if an advertiser is sitting down and looking at this, they're like, oh, okay, I kind of know, here's where our expertise and focus is. And again, it's a good thing for them to understand who you serve. But again, consistency is important. If you pull this out, it says, Folio's focuses on companies of approximately 25 million to 100 million in revenue, okay? And it goes on to explain the difference. Well, the chart on the next page associated with that breaks down the audience by revenue doesn't really have 25 to 100 as a specific category. And even if you gave the benefit of the doubt, at best, it's 42% of their audience. So again, charts are fun. Words are fun, but it's important that people need to make sure that they're clear and precise in the message that's trying to say. What is the clear differentiated message? What is the clear market of emphasis? And what's my value in being associated with it? The next section is the proverbial charts. Charts. Everybody loves these charts. Graphs, they're in everywhere, and they're fun because, they give you some stats and profile data. They're kind of demonstrating your analytics capability. Potentially they could be talking about how you can target and segment, and to be honest, they're also eye candy. I mean, it's fun to look at, it's colorful, so it's good to have in there. But I think sometimes we forget some of the things that's going on behind the scenes. When I look at this is the section, it's called the reader profile section. There's a reader profile, subscribers by job function, subscribers by audience type, reader engagement. Again, we talk about words. We just want to be careful as publishers. We are a diversified media company. So when someone shows up at our trade show or someone attends a webinar, are they really a reader? Are they really a subscriber? Those to me are legacy words that don't necessarily transform the business and what you're trying to present. So be careful with some of these words. Even though you have cute pictures that tell a story, you want to make sure that you're consistent with the way the words represent it, okay? The next up is audience engagement. All of you have sections about audience engagement, products that they like, things that they click on, It demonstrates your tracking capability, which is good. It demonstrates your understanding of their engagement. It shows your audience intelligence, right? These are areas that we want to make sure that we're demonstrating. But one of the things that I notice in a lot of them is they really violate one of the, what I call the core principles of what any kind of audience development data or statistics needs to be, and that is the following. How does any piece of information explain what the challenges are that it is resolving, or what the offerings are that you have that can meet those challenges, or what are the results of some of the work that you've done, and what are some examples of client successes or some results they can expect. So core principles, I always like to say, is a method of assessing any type of point you're trying to make within this kit, and its relevance to the advertiser. So for example, if this is the area, so 74% in print magazines, 74% digital editions, a significant overlap, the challenge to an advertiser might be positioned as, hey, as advertisers, you have so many choices and diversity of your messaging, you could spend way too much money in a fragmented strategy. Our offering is that we bring together all types of media with a consolidated audience and in a single place through our marketing strategies program or our marketing initiatives. The results that you can expect is a lower cost and higher rate of return, and some examples that we have are client A, client B did this, produced this result, had this return. So again, instead of just putting up these visuals that all of these like to be, I want to make sure that you're providing back some kind of relevance to it, some kind of what are the challenges, what do you offer, what results can I expect, and what are some examples of your success. Okay. Also, I notice a lot of times the word product is used. I would kind of start morphing away from products. People don't necessarily, yes, your advertisers sell product, but in the emerging world, it's things like topical interest, contextual interest, areas of influence. Products that they recommend is it's very static, it's very non-strategic. So I would look at words like, topics of interest or contextual interests of our advertisers include marketing services, include distribution services. So it's a subtle thing, but again, products connotates a certain type of ad, if you will. Next up is a mission statement. A lot of you have some kind of a mission statement, and maybe it's a companion to About Us, but in this case, sequentially, it's important to talk about who you are culturally, maybe your position on corporate responsibility, how do you treat folks, right? Here's us as a business. And, this is my example of buzzwords galore, and I hope you guys will go back through this. This is the entry section about the mission statement. You can see it's be leadership centric. We focus on leadership, fast changing, key strategic initiatives, strategic decisions, business strategy, right? So we're like overlapping buzzwords in an environment where they begin to lose meaning. I mean, clearly, if strategy and strategic support is your key, you need to be careful to continuously be using these kinds of soft words that everybody else uses, or else you're going to lose the message in it. We sent this last month, and it's good to go back and ask yourself, are you using these buzzwords? This was a graphic that we showed last month. It was pulled from the Challenger Sale book about how frequently these words showed up in press releases. And if you're using these words throughout your media kit, you're really, one, you're not differentiating yourself, and two, you're using words that would have little to no meaning. So anyway, keep an eye out for those. Again, the second one is focus on benchmarking. This is the company's mission statement. They introduce these interesting questions like, it's important for us to know what was the time frame, what was the ROI, but yet throughout the document, I don't see any supporting. I don't see examples, I don't see insights, and I'm not sure these questions were ever answered. So again, just be careful, even in something as common as a mission statement, that you have these kinds of areas. Products, so products, again, all of you have products. It's the stuff you create across different channels, some custom, some standard. Again, make sure that whenever you have products, you have context. Our friends at NAPCO is a good one, which says, hey, we've got marketing services, and the context of it is saying, are you short on marketing resources? Let us help, right? So they're identifying a problem. People and your customers may be short on marketing resources, so they put a context around it by asking a business question before introducing a product. Again, I think it's important for you to make sure that your products don't just sit there, there's some context around them. Pricing. We talked about this last time. I'm going to give you this analogy. Again, think of it this way. what's the right strategy? Should you have your pricing alongside the product, or should you have as an appendix? I personally think what I saw, I like it in the appendix, because when I see pricing beside a product, I get myself, as I said last time, into the Burger King value meal. I see an image of a product and then I see a pricing sheet. It doesn't feel strategic to me here. It's taking me out of the mode of learning about the value of your product to my business, and it puts me immediately into this transactional mode. I think you'd be better off potentially having your pricing in the back, potentially as an appendix, away from your value proposition on your products. You all have sponsorships, ways to sponsor newsletters. You create content. You say, there's opportunities for advertisers to pay to associate with your content. Some of it standard, some of it custom. The e-newsletters, again, this is a tendency. We want to kind of keep moving away a little bit as a business away from it has to be 50,000, it has to be 100,000, is bigger always better. You're really not highlighting some of the really strong targeting opportunities, as well as just saying we send it out to 50,000 doesn't set any expectations for me around conversions or leads. So again, I just don't think size is everything in this kind of equation. I think focusing on some of your segmentation. One of our clients, Brief Media, I like the way they do it. They talk about, their audience database, it's precision targeting, greater efficiency. They're kind of focused on a different methodology than always feeling like everything has to be sent to the massive number of people. The smaller the slice, higher the price, a concept that a lot of people are starting to subscribe to, needs to be visually represented differently than how many people can we send something to. Look at your digital section, your online presence, your mobile, web, iDevices, it's kind of your online time and space selling. You talk about visits, CPM, banners, etc. I think you all understand what this section is. Again, it goes back to targeting. Do we really have to always say the biggest numbers we possibly can without context? This is the number of sessions and page views and visitors. How does it compare? Is that really demonstrating that we have a deeper level of engagement than just people that randomly show up on our page? It doesn't necessarily talk about the leads or profiles of these individuals. We don't know their contextual interests. We don't know if we have any personalization options. At this point, it's really just some statistics, and I think it would be more engaging if you could tell me how I might be able to get better access to that group. Also, going back to purpose, a lot of you have this intermingled, like, for example, here's a rate sheet, and it'll say something like, at the bottom, like, animated ads, and file size must be this, and it needs to be in a GIF or a JPEG. Again, I think the question is are we in a marketing document? Are we in getting excited about why this is a good place to be? Or is it like a technical manual on how to do business with us? Again, I think you're better off separating these out, parsing it out so that you have clarity when I'm in a particular section what I'm focused on. Email, you all offer email. It's great. We love email. It's a phenomenal service. It's an area of direct messaging for an advertiser. In many cases, it's the best channel of engagement for you. It gives you a chance to do some real targeted programs. And again, it's a component of any lead gen program or marketing automation program is email. Again, words matter. This is a blast. You can either email blast or you can Q&A blast. And I think we're all trying to stop blasting people. People have been blasted enough in this industry. I think we need to focus on being a little bit more strategic on that. So again, be careful with the words. Again, I like what Brief does, where they even put in there some statistics. Again, I'd like them not use the word e-blast here, but at least they talk about the fact that they have high deliverability and high unique open rates that really give me a feel as an advertiser what to expect. They've got real numbers in there. They're confident in those numbers, and they're willing to share them as opposed to generic information. So I like that. I think it's a good way of showing something very specific. Marketing services, you all are expanding in this area, custom media, sponsorships, small events you might do, custom programs. It's a good growing part of your business. Again, always be careful whether you're educating or differentiated. This section about white papers, I know that they can create some very good stuff. It starts off educational. White papers are an effective tool for brand positioning, etc. I'm not looking for education necessarily here. I just want to understand why I want to be in your specific. Results and outcomes are always good to have here. Roundtables, again, I'll talk about this as an example. A lot of times, again, we're mixing something as innovative and as clever and as valuable as creating a custom roundtable, but in the middle of it, we kind of have jargon and slang here, like sponsorship is limited to 2 non-competing, no sales pitches permitted. I mean, it's kind of dragging down this elevated idea of how we have these strategic roundtables that we can provide you as an advertiser to create value for your business. So just be careful about intermingling time and place, the logistics within a kind of a value proposition message, because it can confuse things and really drag down the value of what you're trying to say. You all have live events. We all know it's doing great, making you lots of money. Showcasing them is important within your kit. Within any representation, you do large events, niche programs, you sell attendance and sponsorships, and that's really the purpose of this section. Again, you really want to hone in on what type of event. Some of you put on these big mega events, and that's, there's a reason why you want to go largest. That's important for some industries, but so is targeted. And here you're mixing, sometimes you're mixing up messaging between is the purpose and strategy and audience of this to be a targeted group that I can get exclusive time with, or is it I can show up and be with a lot of people? So again, just remember that all of these things have a strategy behind them. We sometimes just list our products and we don't tell the story behind them. And if somebody's gonna read this kit, the less storytelling you have in it, the more they're going to see you as just a transaction for them, just somebody, a transactional partner, as opposed to what you're looking to do, which is really engage them in a series of different programs to help them. Again, results always matter. Certainly they say, hey, we don't know the agenda for last year, or excuse me, we don't know the agenda for this last year, but for next year, but this year we've had great results and this and the other thing. So, I mean, it's important to make sure that you're clear and precise in why somebody should be involved with this. Client support, you all like client support. I think it's really important. You want to make sure that you explain how you work. What is it like to be a customer of these folks? What methodology do you use? What is your expertise? Maybe what does your account team and account support structure look like? This is the one in the kit. I mean, to me, we talked a little bit about this before. I mean, I think the graphic here, it's a little bit distracting to me. I mean, really, this is a balance issue between, kind of clever graphics and useful information. If I'm going to engage with a customer or an advert with you as a publisher, this section really needs to show me you can operate my program effectively and efficiently, and that you can deliver results. So again, I think this might be just a great topic, but it may be just where it's a little bit out of balance between graphics and content. The process, again, I always ask the question, going back to the core, is what sets you apart? If you're describing a process in your business or a product in your business that's just the same as anybody else's, there's really no differentiation. One of the things I think is differentiated, another example I saw here, we'll talk a little bit about the folks up at Jen up at through Marianne Liebert's company. I like this version of it. It talks about their team. It's personalized. It's got pictures of people. So it personalizes a little bit more. It shows some stability in the business. It shows experience. It shows a willingness to represent these folks and have them out front because, again, as a publishing and media company, a significant part of what your advertiser is spending money with you on is your people and your expertise. Yes, there's products, and that's important, but it's the strategy and personalization behind it that's really equally as critical. So that's really kind of a walkthrough. Here's some things that I would suggest were missing. There weren't a lot of case studies. I didn't hear anything. And even if a customer is not willing to share exactly their name and logo in every case, there's still representative examples that you can share of successes that you've had that will get people to attach themselves to your programs. Client endorsements, I didn't see any in here. There were no quotes. There was nothing of that. So I think it's something that someone has asked before on one of the questions. I do think it's necessary to show that you have clients willing to go to bat for you. It's kind of light on social and mobile. Obviously, it's an area you guys are spending a lot of your time and energy in helping companies get exposed to and working with and displaying your content and making sure that it's, if you're doing advertising programs or even your own content, is well rendered in those environments. I think it's light on ROI metrics. You know, again, similar to what we said before, case studies. What are the statistics? What are some of these data points? Some of them that shows me that I get a return for my investment. Competitive is important. You know, as you guys know, your competition is changing, and I'm sure some of your advertisers are even asking questions like, well, why would I advertise with you instead of on LinkedIn? Or why would I advertise with you instead of on social media? Or why don't I do this? I mean, nowhere are we really necessarily in this kit drawing attention to why you are a destination partner. You know, what is your clear competitive advantage even over emerging technologies or marketing channels? So I would make sure that that was really clear. And then the last one is, we showed on the website, there wasn't a lot of interactivity here. If I was on the site, it didn't really click me through to anything. I didn't have an engaging experience. So I think those are some of the missing sections that I would recommend to go back and look at. So let me show you an example of one that I saw that I think maybe, again, it's not perfect. It's a good step forward. It solves some of these issues and maybe something for you guys to look at. Our friends at the Laredo Group did some consulting for, again, Jen, which is part of Marianne Liebert company, and they're in the genetics and bioengineering space. So, you know, fairly sophisticated place, and they created a website called genmediakit.com. And and I'm sure hopefully they won't mind that some of you will go check it out, but interestingly, it's a very interactive site, and it's really a media kit, again, as we talked about, that's that entry point into the overall experience, but they've done so in a way that creates a much more engaging environment from my perspective. So first of all, the navigation is very interactive. I mean, it takes you to different places. It's architected in a way on the site that drills down into different ideas. You can see in this example, we might go into the website section, which will talk about why their website is a good place to advertise. It talks about, in this case, it has some quotes, it's got some visuals, it talks about the value proposition. So again, even before we get to the more granular kit, we're getting an essence of it, because frankly, guys, if at the end of the day they see the website with the intent of looking at the kit, and instead of taking the kit and going away, they just simply say, you know, your site was engaging, I'm interested, I want to talk and have a strategic conversation, that's really the ultimate goal, is to engage them in that kind of conversation. So I think this is an interesting way to look at it. The other thing is it allows them to do multimedia, so they've created videos about their products, which is great. It shows about their newsletters, it shows about their website. It's an interactive multimedia manner. Again, you are a multimedia company. Your media kit should reflect that and the user experience with it. So I think it's kind of a nice value-added way to get into that. If you get into the kit, they have this image, which I think is beautiful. It shows them speaking in terms of their ad programs and their customer life cycle. I really think it's fun here because they've made a great representation of why the magazine is important. It's important for branding and awareness. So your advertisers might be like, why do I need to be in the magazine? They're making a case here of how these various different products, which we talked about before, it fits within their customer sales cycle. So again, I get context here that I want to be in the web banners if I want to get awareness. If I want to be considered, I need to be in the mobile app, and you get it. If I'm in the decision stage, you want to be in their different areas. So I think this is a brilliant way of presenting a combination of product tied to client business issue. Results and endorsements, so they've got these quotes right in their website, you know, hey, they've done this, they've helped with modernization, it's a great resource for staying in touch. You know, some of these could be readers, some of them are advertisers. It just talks that, you know, of various different personalized issues that shows and demonstrates from an endorsement perspective that they're, you know, kind of backing up their claims that they've made. So again, I think these are great visual representations and value statements. Social, I think you do a nice job of incorporating that in. Again, you're trying to be more of a social company. You're trying to diversify yourself in your content channels. It's good to be out front with social, Facebook, Twitter, etc., and showing how you guys are a player in that space. You're not just a legacy, you know, print and email provider. Targeting and topics. So again, remember we were talking before about email, list rental programs. Again, that's certainly something that they offer. Here they companion with it with all of the technologies, job functions, organizational area. I love the technologies one. I've also seen other customers talk about topics. So, you know, these are the topics that we can hone in on about people. These are maybe some of their engagement, recency of contact, cross-channel, lead score. You know, I mean, these are other dimensions that you could talk about when you get into these programs, as opposed to just simply saying, you know, we have the biggest list ever. Even the way they start it, create a stylized email message to hand-picked segments of the community. Again, that's a perfect way of representing your ability to hone in on what they really want, which is a specific group. Mobile, we talked a little bit about it before. I think this one's interesting because on the left-hand side, you know, they've got your cursory, you know, visual, like we all love charts, and it's great and it's informative. On the right-hand side, they add a little color to it. It's like, you know, something they probably don't know, like a mobile research study revealed 89% of life sciences use mobile. They may not have realized that. That to me might, or to that industry might be a new stat. You know, more than 2/3 own smartphones and use a mobile device to support lab research. They're providing reasons why and context why you want to be in this channel, because it's trying to teach them a little bit about something they may not know about the audience in the industry. So really like that one. It's kind of a fun way to represent it. And then lastly is the appendix. So in their appendix, they've done what we said before in the actual kit. They've separated out the overview of the products from the rates. So when I'm looking and learning about their products, I'm not distracted, if you will, by the rates. If I'm interested in transacting or I'm curious about that, I can go reference it in the back. But it kept the continuity and the flow going, getting me excited about why I want to be an ad, you know, why I want to advertise with them, why I want to work with them, without taking me off course. So again, I think this is a good way to do it because you're trying to separate the purpose of each section so that the reader understands it and can work with you appropriately. Okay, so again, that's just a different example. You can certainly do your research. The goal of today, guys, really was to help you walk through how it really would work. You know, it's not just theory. That was an exercise that hopefully you can use to follow along and go through your own kit. You know, apply those different sections. Apply those different questions that we provided you on the tip sheet to each question, and I think you can find ways to improve it. I'm excited that 72% of you are going to take a crack at a new version of your media kit, and hopefully the 27% of you that are going to kind of, you know, work on it a little bit, maybe find a couple of nuggets in here that you can make some changes to given the resources that you have. So we really thank you for attending. I want to call your attention next month. A lot of you show up every month. If you want, this is an awesome webinar a month from now. August 19th, we'll send you out the invites and interesting. But we have a guest speaker. It's a gentleman named Eric Schanfeld. If you know Eric, he's a very experienced industry insider, and I just saw him speak at the niche conferences, and he agreed to our audience, for you guys, to do a free webinar talking about his book, 10 Proven Website Revenue Tactics. It's really compelling. It's very interesting stuff about ways to make more money in this kind of digital website world, some practical stuff, and we're grateful to have Eric help us out next month as a freebie to the audience. So again, hopefully we'll get the message from it. We'd love to hear you guys again as we can hear again as we continue our series. Also, those of you last month, a lot of you emailed me about this, so I figured I would reiterate it. We're partnering with NAPCO and the Publishing Executive Group to create a high-performance media selling event in New York. It's a day-long curriculum of really practical techniques and tactics to improve and upgrade high-performance media selling. We're closing in on all the agenda and items, but if you're interested in us copying you or contacting you as we get closer, just send me an email and I'll add you to the list. So eventually we'll be marketing this in a broader area, but there's a big need in the marketplace for extensive training on media sales that are trying to get out from under this product-centric approach. So there's a lot of questions on here. I tried to get them throughout the way, covered most of them. If there's any that I missed, I will email you guys directly. And again, thank you so much, everybody. Good luck with your media kits. If you have any other ideas or questions, you can email me, and I'll be happy to respond. And take care, and hopefully we'll see you guys all again next month. Take care.